Hey everyone, in this video we'll learn how to solve higher degree polynomials that are in quadratic form. So let's say we had this polynomial right here, x to the fourth minus 5x squared plus 6 equals 0. Now it looks a lot like a quadratic. It almost looks like it's in quadratic form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 that we've learned about, but it's not a quadratic, because the highest degree of this polynomial is 4. It's a fourth degree polynomial. So it's not a quadratic, but it's in quadratic form. It looks like it could be a quadratic. And that's really important because if we could somehow get this to be a quadratic, equation, well, we know how to solve quadratic equations. So how do we get this to be, or to look like a quadratic equation? So what we can do is say, okay, well, we have x to the fourth over here, we have x squared over here, and over here we just have a constant 6, but that's really 6 times x to the 0, which is 1. So we have this pattern right here, 4, 2, and 1, 4, 2, and 0. So what can we do? Well, ultimately, we want something like x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. We know how to solve something like this because this is a quadratic. The degree of this polynomial is 2. It goes 2, 1, and then 0. X to the second, x to the first, and then x to the 0. Okay, so how do we get this to be in that form? Well, what we can do, just pick a letter. So let's pick the letter M. M equals, and let's let M equals x squared. So let's let M equal x squared, and let's go ahead and substitute M in this formula. So, okay, this quadratic right here, we have x to the fourth. So if M equals x squared, what does M squared equal? So M squared equals x squared squared. And what's x squared squared? Well, according to the power rule for exponents, this is x to the 2 times 2 power, and 2 times 2 is 4, so this is x to the 4th power. Good, so m squared equals x to the 4th. So I can replace this x to the 4th right here with m squared. So let's replace x to the 4th with m squared. And then we'll write the rest of this minus, so minus 5 times x squared. So we have x squared here. What did we say x squared equals? X squared equals m, this letter we made, so m. So m, we will put m right there, and then we'll keep going. Plus 6 equals 0. And great, we know how to solve this quadratic. We have a proper quadratic equation that we know how to solve, and it's up to us how we want to solve it. We could either complete the square, we could use the quadratic formula, or we could factor it. I will go ahead and factor it since I know its factors, so m plus equals 0. And taking a look at the c term, 6, so 6 is made up of negative 3 times negative 2. And I know negative 3 plus negative 2 equals negative 5, which is our b term. So negative 3 and negative 2 should work. So negative 3 and negative 2. In other words, m minus 3 and m minus 2 equals 0. Perfect. And let's go ahead and solve this. So we can split this up into m minus 3 equals 0 and m minus 2 equals 0. And let's solve for m. So for this one on the left, we'll add 3 to both sides. And we are left with m equals 3 on this side. And then on the other side, this m minus 2 equals 0, we are going to add 2 to both sides. and we have m equals 2. Good. Now, we're actually not done yet because we solved for m. We have m equals 3 and m equals 2. But remember, our goal was to solve for x. Our original variable right here is x. So we're not done yet, but go back to what we let m equal right here. We said m equals x squared. Okay, so let's go ahead and substitute m for x squared. So m, we are going to substitute for x squared. So x squared equals 3 here, and x squared equals 2 here. And now we can solve for x, and we can go ahead by taking the square root of both sides. So radical here. That radical will cancel out the square, and we are left with x equals, and don't forget, we just took a radical of both sides in an equation. So whenever we do that, we have to put that plus minus. So plus minus radical 3. Okay, so we have one solution, plus minus radical 3. And now let's do it to this equation right here. So take the square root of both sides. We'll do the same thing. That square root will cancel out with the square. And we have x equals, and same thing with the plus minus radical 2. And there we go. These are actually 4 solutions for x. Because remember, the plus minus means this breaks up into x equals positive radical 3 and x equals negative radical 3. So those are 2 solutions right there. And right over here, this can be broken up into x equals positive radical 2 and x equals negative radical 2. So in total, we have 4 solutions: radical 3, negative radical 3, radical 2, and negative radical 2. And that is how we solved the higher degree polynomial we started with. If it looks like it's in quadratic form, then all you have to do is substitute a letter to be x to a certain power. In our case, we let m equal x squared, and then we substituted for m so that it turned into a quadratic at this stage. And we know how to solve these quadratics. And then once we find the letter, in our case letter m, once we solve for m right here, m equals 3 and m equals 2, then you can go ahead and substitute whatever the x variable is, x squared, back in for m. So x squared equals m right here. And then we can go and solve for x. So I hope this video helps, and if you have any questions at all, please leave them down in the comments below, and thank you for watching.